Level up your LA Kings experience with Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access and rewards. Enjoy great seats to the game in Section 103 along with Yamava Club access and parking included with your purchase. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings shop item at the game. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn perks on each purchase from the only leading ticket company with a rewards program. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings. Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings. Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
Welcome back, Kings fans. This is All the Kings Men. Joining me today again, Zach Dooley. How are you doing today, Zach?
Jesse, I'm tired, man.
Yeah,
I'm
so
tired.
We're recording this on the afternoon of Friday, March 6th. Both of us have been in the building since, well, I got here later than you did, but I've been here fairly early today.
I was in at 7:15.
I was not here that early. I
think I beat you.
Yeah, no, easily. And I wasn't anticipating anything involving the Kings today. And there were 3 transactions.
Yeah, a flurry.
One happened as I was pulling into the parking lot, and I got a phone call telling me what had happened, and I was like, oh God, like, come on. So I was at home 5 minutes ago, nothing had happened, and then I was pulling into the parking lot. So for those who may be watching this and don't know, which I can't fathom, the Kings traded Corey Perry. Yesterday they traded Warren Fogle. Today they signed Matthew Joseph, who had been bought out by the St. Louis Blues. And then as of right now, and it seems silly to be saying this, but as of right now, we still don't officially know that the Scott Laughton trade has gone through. But it is believed that the Kings will have successfully traded and acquired Scott Laughton. They traded draft picks, but they acquired Scott Laughton. So 2 roster players in, 2 roster players out, and a lot of conditions swirling in the air on the picks.
And I think the TLDR of the picks is that the Kings are plus a second rounder.
Yes.
And plus a pick swap.
And potentially,
or they are plus 2 second rounders, minus a third rounder, plus the pick
depending
swap.
on how this rest of the season plays out.
Yeah.
The Kings could have 3 second round picks. They could have 2 second round picks. They could have.
I think they could even technically have 1 if they make the
sure.
playoffs and win 1 or 2 rounds. The conditions of the Panarin trade trigger a third becoming a second.
Yeah,
That's so far down the road. But if you look at today only, it's 2 in, 2 out, and then the Kings are up in draft capital from where they began the day 24 hours ago.
And before we get into the details of all the moves, I do want to give a stick tap to Sean May, who runs Kings PR team. When Ken Holland was hired, and for those who may not know, whenever a new coach or GM or development staff member, whatever, a new person comes in and speaks in front of the media, you have to adapt to their personality.
Mm-hmm.
Like Todd McClellan was very different from Jim Hiller, very different from DJ Smith. And you just have to figure out how to ask questions to get the answers you want. Because if you ask the wrong question, and you ask a yes or no question and you meant to ask an essay question and the answer is yep or nope, well, that's it. You're not asking that question again. And it took me a very long time to figure out how to ask Todd McClellan questions.
By the time you got there, he was no longer the guy you were asking questions.
So anyways, getting back to Sean May, the first availability with Ken Holland, I sort of stumbled through a couple questions. And Sean reached out to me. I hope I'm not throwing Sean under the bus here, and just said, like, you can ask Ken Holland whatever you want, and he'll answer. And since then, I have simply asked Ken Holland direct questions and have gotten insanely direct answers. So the questions I asked Ken Holland today, I was not expecting the level of detail on the answers. And we'll get into those questions a little bit later. But like Ken Holland and DJ Smith are both perfectly willing to answer whatever question you have. You don't need to phrase it or couch it or hide it. You can just come out and ask it.
Yep.
And they'll answer it. And I love it.
And if it's a question that isn't good or is leading, they see through it almost immediately. And we'll make sure you know that they see through it almost immediately.
I don't remember which question it was. There was it was one of the first questions asked of Ken Holland today. To be clear, Zach and I are coming directly off of the media availability with Ken Holland. It was like the first or second question. And the question was so sort of like leading question, first question, not much. But his answer then covered the next 5 questions that would have been asked anyway.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, awesome. I guess
the first 3 or 4 questions were basically like, did you actually trade for Scott Lawton?
Right.
Confirming all the details.
Right.
And then the first long answer basically gave it was like you stepped up to the mic and said, I have a statement about the deadline.
Right, yeah.
Here's
and then
every
explained
detail
everything
you need
that
to
happened,
know
yeah.
in one answer.
Yeah. And I don't remember, I think it might have been me, asked about, because DJ Smith talked about Armia. And made it sound, to me anyway, said that Byfield would be back soon. We saw Byfield skating today in a red jersey. But he said Armia's behind Byfield timeline.
Yep.
But I interpreted that as could be back ASAP, right? Because he's on the IR, which means there's a calendar commitment to that move. But
and the timeline that DJ Smith gave for Byfield was very detailed. It was he will for sure travel with the team on Sunday. And he left tomorrow's game against Montreal up for debate. Didn't commit to him playing, didn't commit to him not playing, but said he will travel the following day, which means he is certainly at us closer, and acknowledged like Armia is further back than that.
So
but
then
that could mean,
So then when Ken Holland was speaking about all the things that had happened, he just sort of casually went down a list of guys that were out of the line. Like he was talking about the trade deadline, and he said, listen, when I made the Panarin move, I didn't know that Fiala would be out, Kuzmenko would be out, Armia would be out, Byfield would be out. And I was like, oh, wait a second. He said Armia's out. Does that mean he includes Armia in the same category as Fiala? And so I asked, and his answer was like, oh, he hurt himself during the Olympics, which was not what I was looking for, but okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And
re-injured himself in the first game against the Oilers.
And now sounds like Ken Holland does expect him to return.
Yep.
And then you pair that with what DJ Smith said. I think it was DJ Smith. Maybe it was Ken Holland. Somebody said trickling back in players.
Yeah.
And so now we go, okay.
You kind of have like this roadmap of the Kings did what they did today. And there are also, 4 players under contract who are not playing right now. We know where Fiala's at. We know where Kuzmenko's at. And now we know where Armia's at. Now we know where Byfield's at in pretty good detail.
Yeah, and I was not looking for this specific detail, but Ken Holland volunteered that he was told Armia was week to week a week ago.
Yep.
So, okay, now we have a
timeline. He's out week to week.
So that was that. Then let's just get into the moves. I suppose we'll start with Warren Foegele because that was yesterday.
Yeah.
You and I agree on this. It was perfectly clear after talking to Ken Holland that the Warren Foegele trade was going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought that it was a fait accompli because on the TNT panel, when asked about the roster, Ken Holland volunteered Warren Foegele's name, and a lot of people were like, oh, he said he's going to trade Warren Foegele. He never said that.
Correct.
I understand why people made the leap, and as it turns out, he did, but that's not what he said. So the question that was asked about Warren Foegele that I was impressed by the answer was The Athletic reporting, an article in The Athletic, mentioned that Foegele requested a trade. And the answer that we were given by Ken Holland was, with the acquisition of Artemi Panarin, with the return of Kevin Fiala next season, I'm blanking. You're going to have to fill in the blanks for me. There were other players. I think maybe Ward coming on strong.
Ward, Ward, when he signed his contract and stayed up, became waiver eligible again. So he would have had to have cleared to go back down, and the Kings didn't want to lose him for nothing.
But like with Panarin and Fiala, it seemed pretty clear that Warren Foegele's spot in the lineup would be bottom 6, likely third line.
It's certainly changed, right?
Yeah.
Like you now have 4, probably 5 wingers who are signed for next year, who the Kings viewed as ahead of Foegele. Not to mention maybe 6, honestly, because you have Armia in that mix as well. So you look at it like that, and it's a tough spot for him to be in, and kind of unfathomable when you think about where we were at 12 months ago.
And he went from having a career best year to a career worst year. And some of that could be injuries, some of that could be roster decisions, whatever. But what Ken Holland essentially said was he would have been fine to finish out the season, but looking towards next season and who was under contract and what the lineup was likely to be, they had conversations. So the return on that one, if I'm not mistaken, there's so many trades and so many picks, I might mess this one up. But I believe this one was a second-round pick, and this is the third-round swap, where
Correct.
if, assuming neither the Senators nor the Kings nor the Capitals make the playoffs,
Yep.
then it becomes just the second and the better of the available third-round picks.
Other way.
Yes.
If all of those teams miss the playoffs,
Yeah.
if Ottawa and Washington miss the playoffs,
Yeah.
the Kings would get the worst of the 2/3,
Right.
and they would send Dallas's third to Ottawa.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
in that scenario, Dallas is a lock. Those teams
Right.
in that scenario would miss. They'd
Right.
probably move, say, from the 29th pick in the round to the 12th pick in the round.
Yeah.
And then if one of those teams makes the playoffs, the Kings get the better
Right.
of those two.
And the second round pick acquired, to be clear, is Buffalo's. It's not Ottawa's
Correct.
because they didn't have there. So they
And that's again a worse pick
Yeah.
because
A
Buffalo
lower pick, yeah.
in the round.
And so I asked Ken Holland about, I again wasn't looking for this level of detail, but he gave it. I asked, how difficult is it to negotiate that conditional, because you can explain it to me 5 times very slowly and I still won't really grasp what we're talking about when it comes to swapping those thirds. So I just wanted to know, how difficult is it to negotiate that? Whose idea is it? Do you have to, who sells who on what? And what he essentially said was there was a second team interested in Foegele. They were going to offer us a slightly better second round pick than Ottawa was. But then Ottawa countered with, well, what if we give you...
It's a sweetener, right?
Yeah. What if we, you getting a slightly worse or lower second round pick, but we'll throw in the opportunity to move up in the third, and we don't want to hang up the phone without a deal.
Yeah.
So they made a deal, and that's what the deal is.
That is as close to a trade I would make in a video game
Yes.
as I've ever heard, right?
Right,
one, you don't hear that kind of in-depth breakdown, which I, like you've said a lot, really respect the information we got. But it's almost like, okay, you fielded offers for that player. The value was a second round pick. One was a few spots better than the other. And you said, okay, you're on the phone with me. If you want this guy, entice me.
It reminded me of the scene in Moneyball where Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill are like, I'll buy the player, but then when I sell him back, I get to keep It's just like...
He's doing the little...
it's just crazy. So, again, I did not expect that level of detail. So clearly Ottawa wanted the player and was motivated to get him.
Yep. And the Kings out of it got, it's not nothing, right? You move up, say... you don't know exactly how many, but let's just say for argument's sake, you move up 15 spots in round 3. Mm-hmm. There's a cost associated with that, and it's usually another pick. So the Kings got another asset for moving down.
So that was yesterday. Then the Kings go ahead and beat New York Islanders in, I don't know, one of the better games of the season.
Fairly convincing
Certainly
fashion.
the best game in the last month or so.
Yeah.
The Minnesota games in early January, I think. Those were
impressive.
Pretty great.
The 6-0 win over Anaheim.
Yeah. There were some good games, but it was a fun game. It was a really good game.
Yeah.
So then this morning, I wake up assuming nothing's going to happen, drive over here, and as I'm parking, find out that Corey Perry has been traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning for a second round pick.
Yeah.
And as I said yesterday when people were asking me to evaluate the Foegele trade, I always want to know all the information before I actually have an opinion.
Correct.
So when it was conditional thirds, people were like, what do you think? And I was like, I need to know what the conditions are.
Yeah.
If you tell me the conditions are, the thirds just swap based on whatever, fine. It's Foegele for a second.
Yeah.
I don't really care what spot in the third. I can't, I'm sorry. You can't prove to me that the 42nd, or no, that's in the second round. You can't prove to me that the 72nd pick in the draft is objectively better than the 85th.
But if someone was like, hey, which one do you want?
Sure,
you
I'll take that. No,
70
absolutely.
seconds.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to get agitated over it. Corey Perry, this, again, it's a second round pick, but to be clear, it's a 2028 second round pick.
Which, for the record, I would prefer from that team.
Yes, because they'll be good this year. Yeah,
That's
right.
that's a clear
You
playoff
want to give them a
team,
couple years to get worse.
and they're an older playoff team.
Yes, for sure.
So I'll take my chances on that
Right,
one
for
being
sure.
a couple years down the road.
And then so the media gathered today at Sports Performance Center, and we were all sitting around watching the trade deadline all day, and all sorts of random conversations came up. And this one I raised yesterday, and I don't know the answer, although we got various conflicting answers. Is there a limit on how far in the future you can reach to take picks from? Because I've heard it's 3 years, but there were 2029 draft picks involved in this year's trade deadline.
Yeah, there were.
But I want to know, like, can I trade you a first round pick from 2040?
It's almost like an Ohtani deferred money situation. Can I just
There's no, it's like Air Bud, right? There's no rule that says you can't trade it.
And there might be that I don't know. It's a good question.
CBA is a very complicated, because I had as it turns out, Grok on Twitter answered one of my questions with reference to a rule in the CBA. I looked up the rule. Turns out Grok was right. So there you go.
Every so often.
Yeah. So Corey Perry traded for a second round pick. And again, this is information that we asked about and Ken Holland provided, because there were two different sources yesterday claiming that the Kings were looking to give Corey Perry an extension. It was somewhat surprising today to find out that he'd been traded, particularly given that he had no trade protection. Ken Holland said that Tampa reached out to them. He gave us the day. I was not expecting that. Sorry, I'm very excited. So I just wanted to know, like, okay, because he made it pretty clear that Tampa reached out first, inquiring about Corey Perry.
Yeah.
He said, what, Monday or Tuesday?
Yep.
And then he went and talked to Corey Perry and got, Corey Perry agreed to waive his no trade protection. But again, a level of detail that I did not expect to get.
And the way that the process should be done, right? Especially with a guy like Corey Perry
100%.
who has that kind of respect. And that's why, Corey Perry probably doesn't come here without the no trade, right? He doesn't want to be shipped at age 41 anywhere. And he's going to a place where he played 2 years. He kind of resurrected his career there, was trending downward, and then he goes to Tampa Bay, has a 20-goal year, and then he becomes, the guy who gets to the final every year. So it feels like a win-win, right? The Kings aren't contending. They could make the playoffs for sure. They're contending to make the playoffs, but they're not in that upper echelon of contenders. We don't need to pretend like they are.
Yeah.
Corey Perry wants to win. This gives him a better chance to win, and the Kings get a pretty good asset for a player who is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And while I really, really respect what Corey Perry did here, he's not a core player.
Right.
He plays lower in the lineup. He does a lot of things really well, but it's not like they lost Adrian Kempe.
A lot of things went wrong this season. Had all of those things gone right, Corey Perry is a wonderful luxury to have. On a team where all those things went wrong,
that's the word, right?
He's like a second.
And that's what I wrote in my story was like an elite fourth line caliber player is a luxury the Kings probably can't afford. And they'd be better served getting a high draft pick.
There are a ton of signings in the franchise's past where even now, and I'll just go back to when they signed Ilya Kovalchuk, even now there will be people who will argue with me, well, it made sense at the time. And I will simply say, no, it didn't, because it was never going to play out the way you thought it was. And in fact, it didn't. And that's my argument. The Corey Perry thing, it did make perfect sense at the time. I totally understand why they did it.
Same with Armia, right?
A bunch of things didn't go right.
But those two things did go right.
It's not Corey Perry's fault.
Right guy, wrong time.
Exactly. So they get a second round pick, and now,
honestly, if it wasn't for the play of guys like Armia and Perry, the Kings might have really sold. Like they're probably as close as they are in some part due to those guys, overachieving.
So then we're going to get into the acquisitions. So I don't remember what time, but we discovered that the St. Louis Blues had put Matthew Joseph on waivers for the purpose of terminating his contract. They did. The Kings then signed him just for the remainder of this season.
Correct.
I don't even, it was 900,000 or something
900,000 prorated.
Right.
To the end of the year, which
they have more
than
enough cap space. It doesn't really matter.
And I mean, Joseph's deal was, I looked it up, 1.8 in St. Louis. So the Kings get him at half of that, which, is why you don't claim him, right? Like he could have been claimed at that, but the Kings were able to get him for half.
Right. And experience with DJ Smith.
Correct.
And, sounds like, so the question that kept going around the room is he better than what at least one player currently on the roster?
Yeah.
And at least for Matthew Joseph, the answer is yes.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And
So
I don't think either of us have watched a ton of Matthew Joseph
I
tape.
am unfamiliar with his game.
I
mean, I know who he is, but
I think that he is a similar style player to Warren Fogle.
yeah.
I don't think there's last year's Warren Fogel's offense in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at his NHL edge, his bursts of 22 miles an hour or more, only 3 players in the Kings have more of those than him this year. Like, he's a good skater, which DJ Smith said, and the numbers back up. Like, he's a 60, 70, 80th percentile skater in the NHL. Seems to forecheck, seems to hit, seems to take the puck away from the opponent. I don't think we're getting 20 goals from him.
No, but
the Kings don't score all that many goals anyway.
I mean, what I see is like, okay, so we just watched a game against the New York Islanders, and listen, it was fun to watch, and they won, and it was great. But Kenny Holland, addressed this directly. Kenny Connors and Jared Wright were in the lineup. They want those guys playing.
Yeah,
but it's hard to imagine that those guys will continue to. Like they've had to play against the Avalanche and the Islanders.
Yeah.
Really good teams.
Yeah.
And they look great doing it. But the Kings are still pushing to make a playoff spot, and they wanted experienced guys in the lineup.
And
so
you can look at it 2 ways, right? What is more valuable for those players? And I don't know the answer to this, but is it 9 minutes with the Kings or is it 19 minutes with the Reign?
Well, of course, I mean, I don't know either, but Ken Holland said they want them playing.
They have to
and
play
if it's not
way.
here,
Yes.
it'll be in Ontario. So
I could see the merits to both.
Yeah, for sure.
And I could see the merits to saying, you know what? We think these guys give us a better chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 2-game sample size is always going to be misleading. But those guys acquitted themselves well. Imagine at least one of those guys plays tomorrow.
Yeah.
But they can't be on this 5-game trip sitting there, right?
Right.
You can't have that.
Well, so the reason Ken Holland mentioned that they're going to play one way or the other is because the question was raised, if Byfield is back, which is a possibility for tomorrow, not clear, and whenever Armia comes back, and they seem to think he will come back, then you
have 13 guys.
Yeah, then you're back where you were before you traded Fogle and Perry, which is we got not too many guys, but more people that you want in the lineup than there are spots available. So then the question becomes, like, right now,
two of those players are eligible to be assigned to the AHL without waivers, and they are the 2 guys who have been here the least. That's what is more likely than not.
Because I'm looking at my lineup right now, and assuming the Lawton trade goes through, assuming Joseph and Lawton are here and available tomorrow, which is not guaranteed.
Joseph is expected to be.
Yes.
We don't even know if the Scott Lawton trade's approved yet, so who knows?
But I mean, I've got one of Connors or Wright out and Byfield out. If Byfield goes in, I've got both of them out.
Yeah.
At which point, they will be sent to Ontario, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, it's interesting. So then that brings us to the Scott Lawton of it all, because that was the last pick.
Yep.
Or trade, I should say. I don't know what to make of the Scott Lawton trade yet, mainly because I just don't know enough about Scott Lawton.
Sure.
And because we just spent a very long time waiting to see if it actually goes through. We still don't know.
Here we are.
But I mean, Ken Holland said he expects him to be a 3C.
Or an LW3.
Yeah.
He did.
Like a bottom 6, very clearly bottom 6 player.
Yep, for sure.
I
don't see DJ Smith anytime soon breaking up the Melanius Ward line that he has affectionately dubbed the Dogs.
Yeah.
So he slots in on the 3rd line for now.
And he plays a very specific brand of hockey.
Yep.
And, he's got a pretty good track record in the faceoff dot. He kills penalties a lot.
Yep.
He doesn't generate a ton of offense, but he's also not completely incapable.
Decent numbers for that kind of player in Philly.
Career high 43 points. He's got a 39-point season, a 31-point season. So like I said, not a point per game, but his best season was more than half a point per game.
Yeah, 40-point guy.
Yeah. And in the faceoff dot, at least the last 2 seasons, he's been excellent.
Yep. There's a reason that this guy was maybe the most sought after piece at last year's deadline, right? Like that was the talk, was like, who's going to get Scott Lawton?
Right.
And Toronto did. And like, that was last year's Toronto that felt it was ready to win a cup. And he was the piece that the narrative was like, this is the guy they need to put them over the top in the playoffs. And the Kings aren't at contender status.
Right.
But they're paying substantially less to get him. Where Toronto gave up a first and a pretty good bottom 6 prospect.
And what I find most encouraging about the moves today is that obviously the Kopitar, Panarin, and Kempe line appears to be working.
Yeah.
The fourth line appears to be working.
Yeah.
You and I both like more Turcotte and Laferriere, I think. I like it.
I like it with Byfield more.
Sure.
When he's available.
And so now you have, you go, all right, we're starting to, this team doesn't necessarily have the ceiling that last year's vision did.
Mm-hmm.
But at least for right now, today, moving it down the stretch on the last 20 games of the season, you're starting to go, okay, I get what all the roles are.
Yes.
I understand, the first line does this, the fourth line does that.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at some combination of guys, probably Lawton, Joseph, and fill in the blank.
Turcotte, Armia,
whoever.
Connors.
That'll be the third line, and there'll be some penalty killers in there.
Yeah.
And then the second line will be some combination of more Laferriere and fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Based on health and availability and everything. And we know what the D pairs do and what they are. And so you start to go like, okay, at the very least, I know what I'm looking at down the stretch. The ceiling may not be necessarily as high, but that's fine because realistically at this point, if you want the Kings to make the playoffs, they didn't take out a mortgage on the future.
Right.
And they are only, and I don't like saying this, but it is technically true, they are only 3 points out of a playoff spot and 4 points out of, second place or something like that?
Yeah.
It's crazy, but that's how crazy this season is. So if they made the playoffs, again, it didn't cost them a first-round pick or, a bundle of prospects. Carter George still in the system. Hampton Slukinski still in the system.
Yeah.
Yes, Panarin cost Liam Greentree, but, they didn't mortgage a future.
Yeah.
They shored up some pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They swapped out some vets that were struggling and some vets that weren't for different vets that will play very specific roles.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Too often this year has given me 23-24 vibes, and that team was just kind of broken, though better, but broken. What you're saying now is starting to give me 21-22 vibes, a team that took so long to find the right roles, but then they finally did. And you were like, oh, I get it now. I see what this team could do. And I don't know, it was refreshing to hear Ken's fairly honest perspective of where the Kings are at.
Yeah.
I think it would have been irresponsible to trade a first-round pick to buy at this deadline.
Especially if they missed the playoffs. That first-round pick
that might have been top 10.
Very good. And with when you mix in the lottery,
would have been reckless to do that.
Totally.
And he said he wasn't gonna. Now, if he traded it for Connor McDavid, fine. Or a player, an elite player, okay, that's different. But he didn't buy a player that doesn't change this team. You can't just do that when you're in the position that you're in because there's so much risk involved. So the Kings, the way I look at it right now is they're no further from the playoffs than they were. They're probably about the same place, but they have 2 extra draft picks in the second round for the moves that they made.
Yeah, if they miss, they substantially improved their draft position.
100%.
And I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, just based on the last 2 games, and I understand it's an insanely small sample size, but based on the last 2 games with the new coaching staff and some of the more distinct roles, it should be more entertaining hockey.
It certainly has been for 6 periods.
If you miss the playoffs, that's going to be a bummer, but at least the games will be fun.
Yeah.
The Colorado game, they lost. They were always going to lose that game.
But they worked.
It was great.
You're almost proud of it. It was
100%.
You know what? That game could have gone the other way real fast.
And the New York game at 1-0 at the end of the first period, how many times have we seen a Kings first period that was really good, only with a 1-0 lead, only and then the second to then give up the lead?
Now you're down 2-1 after 40.
This last night's game against the Islanders reminded me of that preseason interview I Follow gave about putting the foot on the throat.
Step on the throat, yeah.
Where it was like, not only 1-0, 2-0, not only 2-0, 3-0.
Yeah.
They score 3-1, that bizarre last second goal.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just keep scoring.
Yeah.
So you go all right, great.
Yeah. Last year's team, games 3 and 4 of the playoffs aside, they stepped on the throat. For 82, they closed those games out. How many times did they win 4-2 with an empty netter or 3? They always closed that game out. And I don't know, last night just reminded me of that a little bit with the way that they played, which is encouraging. It was also encouraging that no one overreacted to how well they played last night.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like
they didn't go out and
say
boat
like
for Rob Thomas.
Now we're right there, right? Nobody
Yes,
said that.
those words were not uttered.
They maintained composure.
Yeah.
And they gave this team a legitimate shot to play themselves into the playoffs while still adding to the future.
Yeah.
And that is why I like the deadline. I thought they found the right balance between those two areas.
My favorite answer, I think, that Ken Holland gave today was when he was asked, are you likely to hold on to your draft picks or move them, whatever? And Holland just said, let me get to June.
Just give me a minute here, guys.
That was great. But I mean, honestly, like if they miss a first round pick and 3 second round picks,
it's a pretty good haul.
even if you don't use all 3, even if you do trade him for stuff at the draft, move up in the draft. I mean, if the Ken Holland lets Marchinetti go sick with 3 second round picks, so we could wind up with 2 first round picks.
Totally.
I mean, who knows?
You could move up. You could move 2 for 1. You could do a lot of things.
Wind up with 6 third round picks.
You could trade them for a player that helps you. Like the Kings have at least we'll call it a retool or reshaping, because when your captain retires, you have to change something. The Kings have a pretty large hole at center facing them in July. So now they have way more assets to make that trade if they want.
Yeah.
Or if they find that player another way, they have picks going into a draft that we have the last 2 years. They've had to acquire a second round pick. They've traded down 2 years in a row to get a second round pick they didn't have. Now they have multiple extras. They could be the team going the other way, or when a player they didn't expect to become available does, they have the capital now to try to pursue him on draft day.
I reserve the right to change my mind on this opinion, but I think for me, this is just coming off the top of my head, my takeaway on today's trade deadline is the Kings for the last 5 or 6 years have been painting themselves into ever tighter corners with just salary cap space and bringing in vets and trading out picks and younger players. This season didn't go the way you wanted it to.
Yeah.
You could either tighten that corner even more, desperately trying for that final swing, or they did what I think they should have done, which is they gave themselves some flexibility.
100%.
They said, this didn't go great.
Yeah.
We're not giving up on it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go into rigor mortis to clip like there. So all of a sudden there's all sorts of flexibility that didn't exist 48 hours ago.
You ever argue with someone who has a point and then it's proven wrong, but they will die on the hill, like
all the time? And
that's not what the Kings did, right? Like they could have gone that way,
right? And
said, no, we were right the whole time. Suck it and move future. And they didn't. I appreciated Ken's perspective on saying where the team was at, but also his understanding that despite everything that's gone wrong, 3 points out, and the team, I feel like the team has at least earned the chance to push to get in, even if not with major additions.
And credit to Ken Holland, he built this team.
Yeah.
But there are not a lot of guys. There's 5 guys on the roster that are his additions. And he traded
a couple more now, right?
Yes, but I mean, like he traded Corey Perry.
He signed those 5,
He signed Corey Perry. Corey Perry prior was not a member of the LA Kings.
Right.
I would have thought Forsberg, Armia, Perry, Dumoulin, and Ceci would have been unlikely to be moved simply because they were brought here in the offseason by Ken Holland.
Right.
So credit to Ken Holland for saying, you know what? I can make this team better by trading a player that I signed. So
you didn't have to bring that offer to Corey Perry.
Right. You know? He could have said no. Or he could have tried to hassle them. I don't know. But tidy bit of work today. There was no home runs, but in this case, I think what you needed was a bloop single, and they got 2 or 3 of them.
I agree.
So
that's a good word. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up there. So happy trade deadline, everybody. Now I have to get into the habit of spelling Matthew correctly. For those of you who don't know, Matthew Joseph is not spelled Matthew. It's MatthieU.
No.
Okay.
You got to learn how to spell it and say it, I guess.
So I'll just call him Joseph. But two in, 2 out, lots of draft picks and lots of conditions to try and track. And I'm not even going to worry about it today. I'll wait till June.
Wait till June. That's exactly.
Where we're at. Zach Dooley, thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching us, Kings fans. We'll talk to you soon.